Hi. In this video, we're going to work on how to solve for a in quadratics when given two x-intercepts. Now, I want you to remember that the only time that we ever use this formula, which is boxed in pink, which is called factored form, is when they give us the two x-intercepts. Now, if it's a visual question, you're going to notice it crosses the x-axis. If it's a table question, you're going to notice that an x-intercept is when y is equal to 0. Regardless, every single time that they give you the x-intercepts, you're going to use this formula with this topic. So you're going to notice in example 1, it says, my two x-intercepts are 4, 0, and negative 2, 0. But it's going to pass through the 5, negative 7. Now, I want you to always remember that the point 4, 0, these are x-intercepts. So this is my first x, this is my second x. Now, once we know that, we have to remember that in the formula, it says x minus a number. My numbers are these two numbers that are written right here. So when we write this, we're going to actually go ahead and write this as y equals a, which we don't know yet. And then it's going to be x minus 4. And then notice that the other parenthesis says x minus, but notice there's another negative in the formula, but also a negative in the actual answer. So because it's minus 2, I want you to remember that that's going to actually turn this into a positive 2, and then we're going to close the parentheses because two negatives always make a positive. Now, once we do that, understand that this looks great, but one problem. We don't know what a is. So in order to solve for a, you need a random point. Now, what point am I supposed to get? Well, great thing that happens is they're going to give us a random point, which we're going to call x and y. That x and y is the same x that you see in your formula and the same y that this equation all equals to. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the x with the 5 and the y with the negative 7. And if I do that correctly, it should look something like this. Negative 7 equals a, which I don't know yet. And then x is 5 minus 4. And then the other parentheses is going to be 5 plus 2. Now, once I'm there, notice that every single x is replaced, every single y is replaced, every single letter except a is taken care of. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solve for a. Luckily for us, we're just going to work on parentheses. 5 minus 4 is 1, so this is going to be negative 7 equals a. The 1 inside the parentheses, 5 plus 2 is 7. And then I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 1 times 7, but there's an a in the front, which looks kind of strange. So I'm not going to write it as a7. I'm actually going to write this as 7a on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to bring down the negative 7. Now, my last step is let's go ahead and solve for a. So I know I can solve for a by dividing both sides by 7 to both sides. And if I do that, I get negative 1 is equal to a. If I do this correctly, I now found my a, which means in my formula, which again, go back to the beginning, which is right here, is going to be y equals my a, which is negative 1. You don't have to write the 1, so I'm going to put the negative symbol. And then copy paste x minus 4, x plus 2. We don't want to write anything for x because x is just going to be a placeholder. We only want to take care of the numbers, which are x-intercepts, which we knew are going to be 4 and 2, negative 2. Okay, and that's my final answer. So now when we move on to our second example, in our second example, you're going to notice the same thing. You're going to notice they're going to start you off with two x-intercepts, and then it passes through a random point. So what I want you to do instantly is ask yourself, what's given to me? The fact that two x-intercepts are given to me, I want you to think of this formula. A, x minus a number, x minus another number. And then the random point that they give you is going to be the random x and the random y that you're going to use at one step. So when answering this, you're going to be like, okay, I have my two x-intercepts, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. So I'm going to write this out as y equals a, which we don't know yet. X minus sign, 5 is 5. And then the next one will be x minus, but notice the 5 is negative. So that's going to actually turn this into a positive 5. And now I'm like, great, this is awesome. But I don't know what a is. So in order to solve for a, again, I need a random point. Luckily for us, we already have that point. It's x and y. So I'm going to put the y as negative 36. The a is a. And the x is negative 4. But I'm going to plug it into both x's because there's two x's in the problem. Now, if I do this correctly, I should have every single letter taken care of. And I should only be left with one letter, which is a, the letter that we're solving for. So I'm going to go ahead and do some basic math. Negative 36 on the left side, the a drops down. Negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. Negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. I'm going to distribute the two parentheses, which is going to give me -9, but I don't want to write it in front of, I don't want to write it behind the a because that looks strange. So I'm actually going to write that in the front of it to make it be -9a. And then my last step is go ahead and divide both sides by whatever a is, which in this case is -9. Divide both sides by -9, and you'll notice I get a positive 4 is equal to a. Now, what I also want you to think of is 4 equaling a means my a is positive. And if you go back to previous sections, a tells you the direction of the graph. So the fact that a is positive, it means that my parabola, my quadratic, is going to be facing up. So then when I rewrite this, it's going to be y equals a, which I know is 4, x minus the 5, and then x minus -5, which turns into a plus sign, and that would be my final answer. In our last example, we're going to notice that now they give us a table. And when they give us a table, a few things that you want to always remember: the fact that they give you g of x, understand that g of x is always going to be known as y. So if it helps you out, just replace this entire thing for y, because we know y is going to be part of our formula. But understand, we may or may not know how to approach this, and sometimes multiple methods may work for this. So the question is, what do we do for this one if this one was asking about x-intercepts? Well, remember what we said in the first 10 seconds of the video. We said x-intercepts are found when y equals 0, so you can't forget that. X-intercepts are when y equals 0. Notice y is right here, and there's two y zeros. The fact that there's two y zeros means that this is actually going to be two x-intercepts. So I know that my first x-intercept, which I'm going to abbreviate, is going to be -6, 0. And then the other one's going to be 4, 0. And understand I have a bunch of points. I actually have 3 other points that I can choose, because remember, in order to solve for a, they have to give you random x and y. I can't use an x-intercept because I'm already using it, so I have to pick a random point. Now, to be honest, I could pick any of the 3. So I could pick -11, 30. I could pick -1, -10, and I can pick 9, 30. It doesn't matter. It just depends on what you want to work with. I'm actually going to pick -1 and -10 because it's the smallest of the 3 numbers, but it's up to you what you choose. So remember the formula. It's y equals my a, which I don't know, my x I don't know yet, and I'm going to do minus -6, but because it's negative, this minus will be 2 negatives, so I hope you agree this is going to turn into a plus sign. The next one's going to be x minus 4. Now again, it doesn't matter what point you pick. We picked -110. Why? Just because. So I'm going to take -110, I'm going to go to the side, and I'm also going to remember that this is going to be an x and this is going to be a y. So when I go ahead and plug that in, I'm going to plug in -10 for the y, which is right below the y. A I don't know, so I'm going to drop it down. X is -1 plus the 6, and then -1 minus the 4. Now if I do this correctly, I should only have one letter left over, which I do. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. -10 is equal to a, 5, -5. Now, if I work this out, I'm going to get 5 times -5, and I hope everybody agrees it's going to be -25. So this is going to be -10 is equal to -25a. Now, notice as you're doing it, I have to divide at the end and understand that 25 and 10 don't go into each other. So sometimes you are going to be left with a fraction or a decimal, and that's okay. A doesn't have to be a perfect whole number. So I'm going to divide both sides by -25. And then this is going to turn into, I hope everybody agrees, I'm going to simplify it by 5. So it's going to be 2 over 5 as my a is equal to a. Now, once I know that, I'm set. This is my a. My a is positive, so it's going to be facing up. So my final answer will be y equals the 2 over 5 that I already have, x plus 6, x minus 4, and this would be called factored form.